full team and now these haters salty.
Everybody, welcome to the East Coast Red and Gold podcast. I'm Niners Jess, along with Ty Alston, Maddie B, and your girl Bex. It is Wednesday, June 26th, and we're here at a special time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Our special guest, Dieter Kurtenbach, will be joining us shortly. But let's talk about the latest BA news, guys. So he wanted a meeting with the Niners brass. They met.
Just for the record, I would also like a meeting with the Niners brass. Just for the record.
I know, right? We all get one, you know.
Yeah.
If anyone else wants one too, like this is your chance. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay, like that's
pound the table.
Yeah, so they had a meeting. According to Tom Pelissero, it went well. Both sides said what they needed to say, and BA does not want to be traded. What are your thoughts, Ty?
Yeah, it's just open communication. This is the problem. This is why players get upset, because they don't hear firsthand what's going on. They're like communicating with their agent, and if their agent doesn't tell them as much as they want to know, they can get disgruntled. So he's like, you know what? Let's cut out the middleman. Let's go meet with John directly. I can hear it from their mouths. So I'm sure they sat down and was like, hey, forget all that stuff you hear from the website in Indonesia saying you're being traded to the Jaguars. No, this is what's happening. And like I've said publicly all along, we want you here. We ain't trying to trade you. We're just trying to get this done. And when you're working with millions of dollars, it takes time. Like it is what it is. So, you know, it's good that they met in person, nailed it out, hashed it out. And, you know, you haven't heard any real news except for what Tom Pelissero said. So normally no news is good news. So I'm sure they're fine and they're on the right page. And with that being said, they probably still won't sign him to the end of July. Because now everybody's leaving for 4th of July weekend, and you know how it goes.
Right.
What are you about to say?
So the apparently Mike Garafolo.
Mike Garafolo, good job. You crushed it.
Yes.
You picked that up off the rebound. Well done.
He piggybacked off of that and said that they would probably get something done after July 4th. So whenever that may
going
be.
Away. Yeah.
When does training camp start?
July 24th.
When can people start being there? I think I read something about July 16th too as a date of some sort.
I think I saw that week before. They can go in early and get conditioning and treatment and all that good stuff, but no practices.
My prediction is going to be like, we should do bingo.
Yeah.
Right? Like, really, we could do bingo. Like, at the end of the day, I'm going to say my birthday's on July 7th, so I want that birthday present. So I'm going to say, July 7th.
Really?
Or July. Actually, no, what? No. Because they'll take it as a long weekend on the Monday. Pardon me. Let's go.
I was about to say, the 7th is a Sunday.
The 8th would be there.
Ain't nobody working on July 7th.
Okay, how about this? Let's go. I'm going to go Monday, July 15th.
I'll take the 19th.
That's a good one.
You'll take the 19th?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll take the 17th.
Okay.
We got a Monday, Wednesday, Friday in there.
Ty's like, I'm taking August 31st.
That's right. No,
the only August one, yeah.
I'm taking July 29.
July 29. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Somebody write that in the chat so that we remember it.
Hold on, let me write that down.
All
there
right.
you go.
Maddie, what'd you take?
15.
Okay, I took the 15th.
17, 19, and 29.
All right.
Matt, Jess, Bex, Ty. There we go. All right.
All right.
Got it.
Enshrined in the book.
Yeah, watch. Yeah. So, Becca, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree with Ty. I think it was good that both sides sat down and at least, cleared the air on some things, especially if some of these rumors had him in a tizzy on social media, posting all the things he was posting and saying what he said. Then I think it's good for him to hear it straight from the horse's mouth that it's not true and that they're not trying to trade him, and, have him say the words out loud that he doesn't want to be traded, because he's said that before. His family's here, his house is here, he lives here. So I don't think he wants to go anywhere either. You don't want to leave a team that's on the cusp of winning a Super Bowl, and just lost one. So, you want to be back. You want to be back in the hunt. So I do think he wants to be there. And I think it was probably good for both sides to have that discussion. And I think, having the meeting, maybe his agent will come back and whisper in his ear that this is the range we have to be in, and let's get something done. And hopefully that's what happens on July 19th.
So that's a good question. What is the prize for who wins?
I should, you know what? Honestly, like maybe the preseason game in New Orleans, maybe 2 tickets to that.
I wouldn't be able to go.
Well, then if one of us wins it, then like we'll just give the ticket to somebody that we choose worthy or something. You know what I mean? Or then we'll recycle it in. But if one of the listeners, viewers, interactors, engagers, I don't know what everybody is now, whatever you are, folks, part of the community. Anyways, if it's not any of the 4 of us, then the tiebreaker will be time of day, right?
We have to have the time of day now too.
Exactly.
Just remember, it's what you want to put it in whatever time zone it is too, because I'm not doing a damn time zone dispute. Okay, we're not doing that.
I'm going to say 8 p.m. Pacific.
So Jess is 8 p.m. Yeah, I'm going with more like 3 p.m.
Because I feel like it's always like at night. What do you think, Ty?
Yeah, it'll probably be in the afternoon Pacific time. I think earlier though, probably like noon, 1 o'clock. Let's do 1 o'clock.
Ty's 1 p.m.
1
Okay,
p.m.
Matt?
Pacific. Yeah,
I'm gonna do 1 a.m. Pacific time, which means it'll be about 4 a.m. Eastern time, because they do like to do some midnight oil stuff. This seems to me like it. This screams, guys,
now,
to me.
With 1 a.m. on the 15th or 1 a.m. on the 16th now?
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to switch it to 1 a.m. on the 16th, and I'm going to tell you why, because they're probably going to work on it all day for the 15th. Okay. This screams to me, Jed York drunk tweeting, right? Does it not?
It does.
Am I wrong? And then we all wake up in the morning and it's like, oh, and they stayed up late working on this until, whenever. Like I said, if they get back after July 4th and they get back that Monday, like they're probably going to take all next week off. Then starting on the 8th up into the 15th or so, like all bets are. I bet they think that they're going to get it done by Friday, but then there's some sort of BS early Tuesday morning. Or like they'll get it done over the weekend and then 15 lawyers have to look at it. I you don't really know what all goes on. Maybe the league has to look at it. I don't know.
I think they're going to try. They'll work on it all week and squeeze it in on the Friday.
Yeah. I mean, I like that idea too. I mean, honestly, I don't care who's right as long as we're right about this.
As long as it's done.
Yeah, because I'm tired. I am so tired of talking about Brandon Ayuk and his value and his worth to this franchise and this contract and what he deserves and what the 49ers should try to do. I totally understand. It's a business. The 49ers want to get him for as low as humanly possible. BA wants to get as much as humanly possible. They have to meet somewhere in the middle. And if they really want it to work, they will. If not, they'll move on. Right. So we have to live through it the whole time. It's kind of like a TV show.
The social media rants are old too now. Like,
well, and
you're not 12.
Yeah. And that's how the stuff that they put out there is really true, right? Now, I assume here's my really true. I put in air quotes. You didn't see the air quotes because this camera's so damn close. it happens to be down by my leg. I'm like, ooh, air quotes. I'm like, oh, they didn't see them. That was tremendous. Yeah,
You
we're
can
on
tell
it.
he worked on radio, folks.
We're on it today, kids. Yes, 100%. And when I didn't, like, the camera was like way across the room and it had like 14 different shots. It was a really bizarre camera. I really wish I could get that set up here, but I don't think it will work. But I'm tired of the oh, you said you didn't want me things, like, but that's how they stay in, and that's how they keep everything going, and that's how they put the pressure on the team to not do it. This is straight out of the Deebo Samuel playbook, as much as I hate to say it. So this is the 2022 Redux. I just hope that Brandon Ayuk has a hell of a lot better year, but he's going to have a better year than last year. Will he?
Doubtful, especially the longer this lingers. It never seems to work well. Even Nick Bosa had a down year.
Unlikely, but hopeful, according to my Magic 8 Ball. Yes.
Exactly.
You know,
That
that was
good for the home team with that, for sure.
You know, Maddie, you mentioned Debo when they were at the facility for minicamp. They asked Debo like if he was giving BA any advice, you know, about like, you know, just the process or whatever, and he said yes, and that kind of frightened me a little bit.
Yeah,
because this
Like,
is, and you're right,
guys,
this is
these
like
guys
straight
are
out
not.
of
The thing about all these guys, it's the one thing I love about this franchise, right? They're almost honest to a fault. But because you can't just be so honest, they paint themselves into a corner all the time because they use so many words, right? Like that just happens. Yeah, he missed it out one game last year. And was he out of that?
Giants game.
He was out of the Giants game. So,
Yep.
and well, I mean, the good news, it was the Giants. So was he missed? Probably, but not quite that much. You know what I mean? So yeah. It was the Giants, and the Giants defense last year was not great, Bob. So it's just, but they're so honest about it. So like, I mean, Debo is basically telling you, yeah, I'm giving him advice. Even if he doesn't give him advice, like, you don't think Brandon Ayuk was paying attention 2 years ago? Like, do you think he was just staring off into space when this stuff was happening? No, I don't think he was. He knows how all this works. You scrub all mentions of the team during the offseason. People think something's up. He unfollowed the 49ers, and he doesn't show any pictures of him in 49ers gear anymore. Like, they're doing it with Klay Thompson right now in the NBA. Like, that's how they keep themselves in the spotlight, and they keep it relevant, and they keep the pressure on the teams that way. That's how they do it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's anything. That's just the way it is right now. And this is going to keep happening. Some people are going to do it passive aggressively, kind of like what Christian McCaffrey did. Some people are going to do it like Nick Bosa did last year. But I mean, the Bosa family, that's just how they do things, right? So
Right.
we should have seen that, right? We kind of knew. Fred Warner and George Kittle, they weren't really those, like, they talk about how those were all, it didn't seem like those are really all that contentious. You know what I mean? To me. So, you know, we'll see how it all turns out. But this is the problem with this, is until it's not a topic anymore, it's going to be a topic. And that's the thing that I think drives us all nuts.
And we're still going to talk about it more with our special guest, who is going to join us right now. Peter Kurtenbach. Peter,
Hey.
what's going on?
Hey,
It's been a busy day, everybody. How you doing?
doing well.
Doing
How are you?
okay.
Good. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, welcome. Before we get into the later Niners news, you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing now, like your career up until today?
Is anyone terribly interested in that? No, listen, columns at the Merc, radio on KMBR, podcasts on the YouTube. That if you know, you know. If you don't, hopefully you find out. Been covering this team since 2014, a couple of years of doing national stuff in there. But it is. I will say this: since I started covering the NFL full time, and that was around 2011, 2012 with the Miami Dolphins in South Florida. Since I started doing that, the league has grown to a point where we are now on June 26th and actively, passionately, and with hooks of news talking NFL football. That is mind-blowing to me. That is absolutely mind-blowing to me. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's different. And listen, I'm amped up to do it right now. So let's get it on.
So, you cover the Niners, Warriors, Giants, A's, Sharks.
Yeah.
Is there a team that you like to cover more?
The most interesting one of any of those teams, if you could find me another one. As of lately, I mean, it's certainly been very 49ers focused. Not only is it, the local and now singular NFL team in the market, but they're the best team in the market when we're just talking about wins and losses. So the nasty underbelly of the industry is you got to go where the eyeballs are. I still try to present news and commentary and information of things that I find interesting. And I'm usually a bit more off the beaten path, but ultimately you got to give the audience what they want. And in this market, and I would argue damn near every other market in America, they want the NFL. And it's not too hard to give 49ers fans NFL stuff that they want when you have a team that's been this successful and frankly, this interesting.
All right. So let's get right to it. I'm curious. I like to know people's thoughts on John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
So your thoughts?
They're very different people than when they first showed up in Santa Clara. And that's natural, right? It's been 7-8 years now. And there have been a lot of experiences that they have shared throughout this journey of taking, let's not forget, a team that was kind of turning into a laughingstock around the NFL, a team where we were the main topic of conversation, it seemed year in and year out, was they got to get rid of this owner somehow. And it was starting to look pretty toxic in the post Jim Harbaugh era. And we all know the toxicity that era ended with and everything that led to Kyle Shanahan. I don't know if necessarily amid all the criticism, which a lot of it is warranted and a lot of it is just natural and comes with the territory. But I'm not sure if we properly contextualize what these two have done. They have gone from taking over a team that was as bottom could be, and within a couple of years had them in a Super Bowl without an elite quarterback. And something I got hammered for throughout the period of time. History is looking okay on my side these days, and have gotten back to it again in this most recent season. So I do like to, whenever I'm asked about both of those guys, try to contextualize and remind folks that they were handed something pretty awful and something fairly toxic, and that they in short order were able to build a winning culture and a winning operation, which is even harder to do, that I think has long-term sustainability to where if something were, God forbid, to happen to either of these men, because I don't expect either of them to be fired anytime soon, but if either of them were to walk away or both of them decide after this season to hold hands and walk off the cliff together into Amazon Prime broadcasting or something, that whomever takes over in both of those roles after them would be set up with a pretty plum situation. No matter what you think about Brock Purdy, no matter what you think about the longevity of the 49ers Super Bowl window, I think that there would be thousands of coaches and thousands of personnel people across the college and NFL spaces that would be chomping at the bit to take over in Santa Clara, even with all the warts and even with the lack of spending from the York family. So ultimately my big takeaway is, when people get on Kyle, and I get on Kyle plenty, I'm not going to be an apologist for anybody, but I'm also not going to be a bulldog when there isn't a bone to be biting on here. If I would say 28 other teams in the league right now would fire their head coach to put Kyle Shanahan in charge. There are very few situations where teams would not take Kyle Shanahan. And that persists to this day, not just because of what he was able to do to build the culture up, build the roster up, but because of his offensive acumen, which is second to none still in this league. And the success that he's had on field, even if the in-game situations have sometimes thrown him for a loop. And with John Lynch, it is legitimately stunning to me how far John Lynch has come as a personnel man, because when he was brought in, it was Kyle Shanahan's job to be the GM of this team. John Lynch was there to press the flesh, kiss some babies, go to the league meetings, and to just generally be likable and to do all of the political things that go along with being a GM in the NFL that Kyle Shanahan had neither time nor interest in doing. And at some point, and I would really like to have this date pinned down or something to this effect, but maybe it was a slow, gradual process, frog in the boiling pot of water. But at some point in the last 2 or 3 years, Kyle Shanahan has ceded control of this roster in an earnest and honest way, to where John Lynch is now not only making those calls and doing all those political things and being the quote unquote face of the personnel department, but he's also getting last say. And Kyle has ceded that to him. And I find that to be a really interesting dynamic. So if you don't like this roster this upcoming year, don't blame Kyle, blame John.
So I forgot what I was going to ask you. So what do you have to say to the people who don't like Kyle and would rather somebody else that they can't give a solution or anything like that?
It's the same thing I say when people argue that somebody's overrated. Like, okay, what are they rated? Explain. You have to be rated to be overrated. And ultimately, these are just empty tropes. And a lot of times these are just reactionary, emotional opinions that aren't really founded in any thought or basis in reality. And you know what? That's okay. I think a lot of people would get on a high horse about that. I am very adamant to not, because if we didn't have these emotional responses, if sports didn't make us feel something, I wouldn't have a job. And I love this stuff. And I think it's an incredible window into the human condition. Not that I care that much about the human condition, but it is sure interesting. And so I always try to force people to show their work. And as I said earlier, how many other NFL teams would kill for Kyle Shanahan to be their head coach? There's no perfect head coach. Bill Belichick just got his ass fired in New England. Sean McVay hasn't been perfect. If we're always going to do the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan comparison, let's look at some of the lean years Sean McVay's had while we're at it. There's no perfect coach. There's nobody who has this thing totally pegged. And while I can make the argument that Kyle Shanahan hasn't terribly progressed as a head coach, and I'm very interested to see how he comes out tactically this year, because I think this year demands a bit of upgrading, a bit of progress, a bit of personal development on his end. While I do feel like sometimes he gets a little rote and isn't as pragmatic as he should be, the dude is still as brilliant an offensive mind as there is in the league, tactically unchallenged by anyone on the offensive end, which is where you want to be, unchallenged if you are a tactical genius. I got a nickel for every defensive genius out there who had a couple of different jobs over the course of a 5-year span. So Kyle Shanahan is as good as it gets still, and the monkey is going to be on his back until he wins the Lombardi Trophy. There's no question about that. As well it should be. That is the ultimate barometer of success. And I just think to the guy that he faced in the Super Bowl this past year and a few years before that, and Andy Reid, who eventually got run out of Philadelphia because they said, well, we got to do something different. And while it did work out for the Philadelphia Eagles in the not too distant future, it also worked out pretty incredibly well for Andy Reid, because get this, he was a pretty damn good coach. And it just took a little bit of luck in a new environment, getting that Patrick Mahomes fella for it to all come into place. Maybe Brock Purdy is that guy for Kyle Shanahan. Maybe it's a quarterback who we don't know about yet. Hell, maybe it's a quarterback who's in 4th grade right now. I can't tell you, but until Kyle gets that Lombardi Trophy, the monkey's going to be on his back. I know it drives him. I know that that's not something he takes lightly. I think he's someone who really enjoys the fact that he's the head coach of the 49ers and all the scrutiny and attention that comes along with that. There's a weight to being in that role and following in the steps of a Bill Walsh and following in the steps of so many great coaches before him. And getting that 6th is something that, it's an incredible motivator if you're wired the right way. And I'm certain that Kyle Shanahan is wired that way. So again, if you're not in on Kyle, show me the solution, because I got some bad news for folks out there. Much like the dating world, as I tell my married friends, and I haven't been in it for a long time, so it's hard for me to really speak to it, but I don't want any part of that. I'm a house cat now. I do not want to be out in the wilderness. The 49ers have had it pretty damn good. I don't think they want to be out in the wilderness trying to figure this thing out on the fly because they made a rash decision with Kyle Shanahan. And luckily ownership doesn't think that way. And ownership is committed to two very quality people in their jobs, in Shanahan and Lynch. But, if the fan base wants to keep clamoring for somebody else, I'm all ears on the solutions. I got a feeling like people aren't going to be coming up with very good names, though.
Yeah, from what I've heard, there have been no solutions. But they often make the comparison of Andy Reid in Philadelphia.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. The Doug Peterson regime worked out marvelously for everybody. Like, they won a Super Bowl. That's fantastic. And then they
but look how long it took them to win that.
Right.
Yeah, that's what people overlook.
It was a couple of years. Don't get me wrong, but
it didn't happen overnight, though. It took a couple of years, but they had to go through Chip Kelly, and then and we know about Chip Kelly.
I mean, listen, it's you are right there on the precipice. And again, much as I say, a lot of other teams would take Kyle Shanahan. How many other NFL operations would kill to be in the 49ers shoes right now? Does it suck that you're a team that, fought tooth and nail to get there and can't get over the hump because you're going up against maybe the greatest quarterback of all time? Yeah, that totally sucks. We can all agree on that. That sucks something fierce. But you could be the Jaguars. You could be the Chargers. You could be, I don't know, like 30 other NFL teams. Do you think the Green Bay Packers would make the swap? I think they would. The Green Bay Packers are doing pretty well. I mean, you think the Detroit Lions would have liked to have been on the other side? You bet your ass they would. So they are tears, much like a toddler whining for no reason. They are tears that fall upon deaf ears. If you don't know how good you got it, if you're complaining about this, and you don't deserve it if you're complaining about this, ultimately that's not my decision to make. And I don't think anyone has any cards on fandom or anything that we can revoke, but check yourself and what it is you get out of sports. If this is something you don't enjoy, if this moment for your team is not something that you are basking in and enjoying, God, that sounds exhausting.
Yes, 100%. Getting to the players, what is your biggest position concern for the 49ers?
Oh, singular biggest position concern. I think a lot of people will say offensive line, and I think there's validity to that. That's almost too cliche and easy of an answer. I'm going to go a little bit off the board, and it sucks because I really do like this player, but they only have one free safety on the team. Like, there's nobody else. And this is a team that has not so quietly suggested, not so subtly suggested, I should say, that they're going back to a strict cover 3. And I disagree with that. I disagree with that idea in principle, but if that's what they're going to do, that's what they're going to do. And maybe I look like an idiot. It wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last time. If that is indeed the case, Jair Brown went from being a fun, feel-good story about a young player figuring it out on the fly to suddenly the most important player on the defense, because a single high free safety in a cover 3 scheme, you think about the teams that have had success with that scheme in the past, and then you think about their Hall of Fame free safety. Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned that Ed Reed and Earl Thomas might not be precursors to Jair Brown. As much as I really like Jair Brown as a person, I think he's a wonderful football player. I called him the Brock Purdy of last year's team, a guy who is young and kind of gets tossed into the mix without much preparation and can make a huge impact. I believe safeties are destiny in the NFL in this modern passing game. And while I do think that Jair Brown can do that job at a pretty high level, my God, I don't know what the hell you do if he twists his ankle, much less does something worse, because you cannot stick Talanoa Hufanga back there. I don't think Malik Mustafa is a cover the whole back end of the field free safety. They're going to have to hit up the Disney cruises again. And I'm not sure you can win a Super Bowl with a strict off the street free safety like the 49ers seem to pull off every year. So that's a big concern if they're going to run the defensive scheme that they threaten to run this upcoming year. But I got issues with linebacker. I got issues with the defensive line, which I think is going round. I think it's being under discussed this offseason that this defensive line, and I wasn't the biggest Eric Armstead guy, but my goodness, do they miss somebody like him on this defensive line? And we haven't seen Malik Collins, and maybe that will assuage some fears, but the opposite defensive end is an issue to Nick Bosa. Backing up Nick Bosa is an issue. Defensive tackle is a tough scene, particularly against the run. Obviously, offensive line anywhere but Trent Williams is going to be a big deal. And, I'll throw one quick log on the fire here. I think the 49ers have committed malpractice with how they've handled backup quarterback this season. And you would have thought that if any team would know how important it is to have backup quarterbacks, plural, 2 backup quarterbacks that you can trust to go out and win 2 of 5 games if they are called into action between the 2 of them. But if you got to take over for 6, you got to be able to steal 3 of those games, half of them. You got to play 500 football while your starting quarterback is out in this modern league. If you would think that any team would know that, it'd be the team that was down to their 4th string quarterback in the NFC Championship game and then lost him, forcing their 3rd string quarterback to go back in there with a torn UCL. You would think that they would put a little bit more thought into, hey, can we win with these backup quarterbacks? Because we've been in a spot where we've needed to win with our backup quarterbacks before. And yet they're going out there with Brandon Allen, who's a lovely guy, but is not someone I trust to win an NFL football game, much less multiple. And Josh Dobbs, who did win multiple games last year and then got to look at the playbook. And after he looked at the playbook, got cut. It's real great if you're playing backyard football. Last time I checked, the NFL has played in 70,000 seat stadiums. So my friend Larry Kruger likes to think Tanner Mordecai can be that guy. I haven't seen it yet. I think that the 49ers backup quarterback situation could be the defining factor of this season. I hate to say it. I hate to project that into the universe, but it's something that I think about quite a bit. And I don't have any deeper take than that. I don't think that they have backup quarterbacks that can win games. And I think that could well be the difference between the 49ers competing for a Super Bowl and playing on the road in the first round of the playoffs, trying and scrapping and fighting for their lives from the opening snap of the game. And given how they should know, I do think that is a dramatic oversight.
Who wanted this guy on here? I'm kidding.
I'm going to go through my text messages real quick. Give me just a second. Run right through that.
You don't think Yetur Gross-Matos or Leonard Floyd is an answer opposite Bosa?
They are answers to the question, are these human beings that can play opposite Nick Bosa? And answers to the questions that the 49ers have actually been asking, which is to get somebody who could realistically give you 7 or 8 sacks a year. I don't see it. I keep going back to the conversations that I was having with folks I trust around the league immediately before, and then certainly immediately after Leonard Floyd was signed. And I have a lot of friends who are Buffalo Bills fans, which doesn't say much about me as a person. Certainly not them. And drunkards. And they all said, you can have them. And I always find that to be interesting and informative when fans kind of turn. And that's not to say that's the be all to end all analysis, But when I talk to people in the league, I ask questions, and a couple of people with the Niners too. I ask questions like, okay, he's clearly not an every down player anymore. No problem with that. But is he a first and second down run stopper, or is he a guy who you want to bring in on third down as a speed rusher, or somebody who can get to the quarterback? And I would say I talked to 7 or 8 people, and it was 3 and 4 or 4 and 4. I mean, it was right down the middle. No one could tell me if he was a run stopper or a pass rusher. Everyone agreed that he wasn't a 3-down player, but no one could seem to figure out what his role actually was. That does not inspire confidence that he can actually do anything for the San Francisco 49ers this upcoming season. And when I watched the tape of him this past season, in a season where he was phased out pretty aggressively, even for a bad Buffalo football defense at the end of the season, I understand where they're coming from, because he's kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I think the 49ers are just kind of trying to throw a body out there. And listen, you could do a whole lot worse than Leonard Floyd if you want a body, but man, that's kind of a bad way to approach a Super Bowl or bust season. We'll just stick a body at defensive end. Kind of an important spot. I like Yetur Gross-Matos a lot. I like Yetur Gross-Matos because of the versatility and the possibility of sliding him inside on third down. And I think that there's a bit of a mutual exclusivity between the possibility of throwing him at opposite Bosa at strong side end and having him hold the edge, set the edge, do all the things against the run, and then sliding him inside as pressure. Like, I don't think that his game is developed enough to where he can sort of hold both of those things together at the same time. I'd like to be proven wrong on that. I think that he's a really interesting player, but he's also not some like young kid who's a new toy. He's played multiple years in Carolina, and while we can all clearly state it's not as if he was well coached there, he is still, getting NFL level coaching and never really turned it into much in Carolina. There's a reason he was available to the 49ers at the rate that he was available at. So I think this idea that, he's this ball of clay, the clay's a little hard. I'm not saying that he's not moldable. I'm just saying it's not as easy as molding a rookie or molding a really young player. This is a guy who's got some wear and tear on him. And while it could work out really well, I do think that there are some concerns opposite. I mean, this is a team that just could not set an edge for the life of it at the end of last season, and could not stop the run on the inside either. And while they've spent a little bit of money and they've certainly brought in some new faces, there's no indication that either of those problems have been solved to me.
Maddie, your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, Leonard Floyd to me seems to be a pretty capable pass rusher. I mean, for the Buffalo fans that didn't want him last year, he did lead the team in sacks.
Yeah,
he led the team in rushes, and he led the team in rushes too. And that was not what you would call a defense that was stopping literally anyone last year.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But just because
what he did when he was with the Rams, I think they're kind of asking him to do the same thing here that they were asking him to do with the Rams. To me, I think he's more of an aggressive Cleveland Farrell kind of in that scenario. You know what I mean? With a little bit more upside. But the dude is all of a sudden 10.5 sacks, 9 sacks, 9 sacks, 10.5 sacks, right? And he's doing that on a Buffalo line last year. It's him and Ed Oliver. Ooh, those are some scary guys. Watch out.
Ed Oliver's pretty good.
So you know what yeah. Okay. So sure. I don't think he's any better than Leonard Floyd. You know what I mean? You're asking him to work on the other side of a pissed off Nick Bosa, who's going to come off this year realizing, hey, my last year sucked. In fact, he had as many sacks last year as Nick Bosa. So Leonard Floyd, to me, I thought was a great signing for this team. I thought it was a year too late. I think they would have been a hell of a lot better last year with Leonard Floyd on that defensive line than what they did last year. To me, the two things that really screwed this line last year, Eric Armstead's injury, Cleveland Farrell's injury. That's when the edge completely just went away. They weren't gangbusters at it in the beginning, but they fell out of the top 5 last year. That's the first time they fell out of the top 5 since 2019 or something like that, 2018. Clearly there's problems, and clearly just spending a bunch of money and throwing a bunch of money at Javon Hargrave last year didn't fix it.
Yes. Well, I'll agree with you on one thing. It would have been better to have gotten Leonard Floyd last year, because last year I thought was fairly informative to where Leonard Floyd is in his career. If they're asking him to do what he did with the Rams, that makes all the sense in the world. There's a lot of schematic overlap there. They clearly understood what he could do while watching them in the division. I don't think he can do what he did with the Rams, with the San Francisco 49ers again. I see a guy who, yes, put up some stats, but when you watch the snaps, this guy got washed out a lot, like kind of comically. And I highly recommend, if you need one game to encapsulate a larger point, which has been, I assure you, we've got like 10 Buffalo Bills games snap by snap under my belt here. But if you want one game that sort of sums it all up, watch the game in the playoffs against Kansas City. They needed him so badly, and he was going up against the worst tackles in the NFL. Those guys sucked. Those guys were terrible, and they were playing terrible, and Leonard Floyd was a no-show in that game, to the point where they just kind of stopped playing him even. So all of the work that he did last year happened at the beginning of last year. That is not terribly surprising given the longevity, but the Niners are counting on him, and they've mentioned this publicly, and it was pretty clear in them prioritizing him. They mentioned him as somebody, oh, well, he can be out there all the time. We really had trouble with injuries. We want someone who's durable. There is a line between durability and output. And I think Leonard Floyd last year showed that, maybe less is more for him. And I don't think that he's in a position with San Francisco where where less can be more. I think they're going to be riding him, and that might look really, really good in the first couple of weeks, like it did for Buffalo last year. And then we're going to go from, I believe it was the Miami game on for Floyd last year, where he had like half a sack, one sack, and it was a cheapie at best, and was a no-show in the biggest game of the year. Maybe there's an injury that's been addressed and fixed. I haven't heard anything like that. That hasn't been something brought up to me. I might be ignorant to it. Maybe, the California sun will fix them in a way that obviously Buffalo, New York couldn't provide. But I am wary of Leonard Floyd being the impact player that a lot of people are building up. All that said, anything's better than Randy Gregory. So here we are.
Randy Gregory and Chase Young, man, both of
Chase
them.
Chase Young had his moments.
Guy.
He had his moments.
I mean,
Randy Gregory is the most annoying football player I've watched. He is literally what
you just described with Leonard Floyd. He literally started off like a ball of fire and then
disappeared, faded into the limelight.
Faded it, and when you're talking about setting edges, him and Randy Gregory, forget it.
Randy Gregory did not set a single edge all season.
And look, at the end of the day, this defensive line wasn't nearly as great as they should have been against this Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. Because 100%. Once again, when the Kansas City Chiefs are in the playoffs, they're not called for holding. So they get really good in the playoffs, and it makes things easier. You know what I mean? So I think that has a lot of.
Well, they actually have to put a television product on the on the field.
I understand. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they're I mean,
listen,
Buffalo, San Francisco has been the Super Bowl that everybody's wanted for years. You know what I mean?
I don't think the 49ers want that. I think Josh Allen, and I think we're going to find out, what is that, week 13? I think Josh Allen provides
December 3rd would be a good time. Well, you know what? That's a measuring stick game. We'll see if this defense is able to defense next year.
Yes, to say the least.
They got a few of them.
A
few games.
So they got quite a few.
I think that one to me is like one of those final boss sort of measuring stick games. You know what I mean? When you're talking like a Josh Allen or, you're going to have Patrick Mahomes. That's also towards the end of the year. You know what I mean? So you can compare him to Goff and you can look at some of the other guys. But, to me, that one, they're going to have Jordan Love and Josh Allen in back-to-back weeks.
That's right. Yeah, that Kansas City Dallas 1-2 is hellacious. By the way, Seattle, prefacing both of these, Kansas City, Dallas. So Seattle, Kansas City, Dallas bye week. And then at Tampa, which, you can infer what you want from that. I'm not going to bet on Baker Mayfield in back-to-back years. But then Seattle at home, at Green Bay, at Buffalo. At Green Bay, that's just before Thanksgiving. That's Buffalo,
Thanksgiving weekend, I think.
Yeah.
24th, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it, yeah.
So, I mean, you want to talk about a pop. You get Mike McDonald, Andy Reid. Well, then, something else happens after that. And then Mike McDonald, here's LaFleur, and here's Buffalo. That's wow.
And don't we also get them all after the week after their bye weeks, right in a row, four in a row?
There's
They're
something.
all-
There's something
Yeah.
to that effect.
Yeah,
It's all a grand conspiracy against one of the league's main cash-making teams. I mean, the NFL hates the 49ers so much. They just hate making money.
So, do the 49ers make another run at the Super Bowl?
Oh yeah, they'll make a run at it. I think that it's presumptive and perhaps overly aggressive to just sort of pencil them into even the NFC Championship game. And it's not to say in any way that they can't do it. They could absolutely win the whole thing. They're as talented as any team out there. In fact, I have a hard time saying that any team is more talented than this 49ers team, warts and all. But God, you know, I understand that the whole world ended, but I can't get just the calamity that was 2020 out of my mind. And this is a very different operation, a very different team, and a more talented team. But just this team got away with not being very injured last year, and that allowed them to get away with not having a tremendous amount of depth on this roster, and they were pretty top heavy. And while I think they've addressed some of those depth issues, I'm not sure that they've been fully alleviated. And it's hard for me to imagine them being as healthy as they were last year again this year. So if they are to do it, it will be anything but a coronation. It will be anything but straightforward. Not only do they have, every year they have this horrendous schedule, that's to be expected. And it's not as if it's not something they can manage, but this team is, the most adversity this team faced in the regular season last year was they were missing Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel for a couple of games mid-year. And while that is not anything to scoff at, and we certainly saw the outcome of that, I am of the mindset that they're going to get kicked a little bit harder this upcoming season. And that's just, regressing to the mean. I think everyone would hope that I'm wrong. I don't like putting it out in the universe, but I can't shake the thought that that's something they're going to have to reckon with this year. And while they certainly have more than enough talent and more than enough quality and more than enough gumption to continue to make hay and to continue to be a winning football team in such an environment, last year was relatively pain-free. And then they get to the playoffs and it was nothing but pain. So maybe a bit of reversal is positive for this team. Maybe not. I am naturally someone who is going to expect the worst, and the worst for this team is still pretty damn good and gets them in a position to where they can do what it is they plan on doing. But I just think it would be aggressive and, again, presumptive to think that it will be as straightforward as it was last year, because all things considered, that was a pretty clean regular season for them. And that's just not really how the NFL works these days.
So I got two more for you. Does the core stay intact next season?
Oh, well, I mean, sorry to do this, but you'll have to define the core to me.
George.
All right.
Yeah.
BA, Deebo.
Okay. Well, no, we'll get right there. I don't think Deebo Samuel is on this team this time next year. I don't think that it's possible to pay Brock Purdy what you will pay him, but they will pay him. To pay Brandon Ayuk what he will be paid by the San Francisco 49ers in the not too distant future, and to be cap compliant and to maintain Deebo Samuel at his current rate. So they shot both Brandon and Deebo before this draft to see if anyone wanted to make a Godfather offer. I was under the impression that Deebo Samuel had been traded for about a 45-minute window on a Tuesday afternoon. That was a fun day. That did not, in fact, happen. It got called off who knows if it was last second or not, but he did not go to the AFC. The 49ers are going to move on from Deebo. And I think that everybody knows that. And I don't think that that's going to be a negative I don't think that's going to cast any palls or negative energies over the season. I think that Debo is in line to get another contract. The San Francisco 49ers are not in line to give it to him. So he needs to have just an exceptional year so that wherever he goes next, one, the 49ers can get as big of a return as possible. I don't think he'll get a first-round pick or anything like that, but I think they'll do better than what the Bills got for Stephon Diggs. And that Debo is in a position to cash in with that new team. So I think that can be a fairly mutually beneficial exit. But again, I don't think Debo Samuel's on this team. And I think that the 49ers, if you put even just a drop of truth serum in Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch's IV, they would tell you that that's going to be the case.
All right, last one for me. BA met with the Niners brass. Talks seem to have gone well.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? And when do they get a deal done?
I don't think it will be until August that they get a deal done. I do think that Brandon's going to miss probably all of the non-padded portions of training camp and probably going up to that first preseason week. It should be noted that if you miss a preseason game, they take a regular season game check from you if you're holding out. I don't expect Brandon Ayuk to hold in. So the fines are going to be of issue. When Nick Bosa held out all of last training camp, we all know what that turned into and that it wasn't a good idea for him ultimately, even though he did get his money. But the 49ers fined him hundreds of thousands of dollars as per the CBA. But because there was never a question that contract wouldn't get done, there was never really those fines were just phony baloney money. Like it was never in theory that the 49ers would actually uphold those fines. If the 49ers and Brandon Ayuk want to play super hardball to the point where he's going to play this season on his 5th-year option, they're not going to wipe away those fines. So Brandon has to factor that into the calculus here a little bit. So I think the true deadline is what? August 10th. I'll say the day of August 10th. They that game against the Titans in Tennessee, they have something worked out, and the contract is done. And I think it'll be around 28, 29 million a year. I think more importantly, the fully guaranteed money is going to come in well above 50. And that's the important thing for Brandon Ayuk and for the 49ers. But my overall thoughts on this thing is that, wide receivers are a different kind of cat, right? We're re-entering the era of diva wide receivers. And as someone who peddles in the soap opera that is football, that's fantastic for business. Brandon Ayuk is not good at this. Debo Samuel he did a great job. He was acting a fool on social media. He was making himself known left, right, and center. He's demanding trades. He played that thing perfectly. Was it totally embarrassing and made it difficult to look him in the eye ever again? Sure, but he got all of his money. Brandon Ayuk is not that kind of guy. He's not flashy. He's not diva is about the furthest word from him. He's a very sharp guy. He's an intellectual guy. And I think he's trying to go through that playbook, and it just doesn't suit him. And this past week, or even if we take in conjunction the whole "they don't want me" video, it's been kind of sad to watch because he's so ill-equipped to play these sort of strange political games that come along with contract negotiations. The best thing for Brandon Ayuk is to do what he had been doing up until a couple weeks ago, which is just shut the hell up, let your agents and you do the work with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan to get something done and keep making money by being silent. This guy has made $3, $4, $5, $6, $7 million more per year by just not doing anything. And while there is a limit, clearly, when training camp starts, then he's going to start losing money. But while there is a limit to that, the tactic worked pretty damn well for him. Everyone else was getting paid, and the price just kept going up for Brandon Ayuk. And then suddenly everyone else gets paid, and now he's freaking out and starts acting in honestly ways that are not very Brandon Ayuk like. So I think that all of this social media stuff and all of this, Instagram coverage and hanging out with, he can hang out with whomever he wants. And, I'm happy he has friends. Heaven knows he's got more than me. Like there is that is a script for another player. That is a script that somebody who, with a different personality can play off. And this is all just been kind of depressing to watch because he's really just not good at this sort of thing, which, by the way, is probably a testament to his character. And I think that him calling this meeting and him saying, the Niners don't want me, and posting that on his own TikTok and then doing that, Instagram post the other day, I think that just tells the 49ers that they got him where they want him. I mean, he's cracking. He doesn't seem to be handling this very well. And for a team that already held all the leverage, it seems as if they can extract even more out of this guy if they want. And I hate sounding like a shill for the damn team because heaven knows I'm not. And I think Brandon's a great guy. I've really enjoyed the conversations I've had with him. But man, this has not been well handled. And I'm going to put the onus on his agents. They're about to get a percentage of tens of millions of dollars, and they are not helping their client right now. I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. Clearly, no one knows what's happening behind the scenes, but they are not helping their client by telling them, go to Bora Bora. We'll send you a trainer. Do nothing. Just go enjoy your time, because there's nothing that you can do to help your cause out here in the real world. Get away, go do something else, lay low. We'll keep you abreast. We'll keep you in the loop. We'll get you your money. This whole thing, it's been bad. It's been bad for Brandon Ayuk, and ultimately it won't matter. And maybe even people will credit whatever's happened here as the reason why it worked. Those people are wrong. I'm right on this one, that this is a bad look for Brandon Ayuk. And ultimately, I'm still confident that they'll get something done here, because it just behooves both sides to have the cost certainty of a new contract on the books.
Dieter Kurtenbach, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. That was great.
All right.
Yes.
I'm bouncing. I'll see ya.
Take care. All right, guys. What are your thoughts on what he said? Go ahead, Becca.
Well, I mean, I do agree. We alluded to it at the beginning that it is a bad look for BA. I called it, tantrum, like on social media, behaving like he's behaving. I couldn't agree more. He should have just disappeared in the wind and let your agents handle it. But, if Debo's giving him advice, is Debo telling him to act a fool and do these things? Or is Debo talking to him from Debo's new perspective of, hey, yeah, I let that get to me. I was emotional. It didn't work out so well. I had a really down year. And I see that now looking back. So I don't know what kind of advice Debo's giving him, if he's giving it to him. Hopefully it's the more mature hindsight 2020 view versus the go out there and pull these shenanigans, because I don't think it's a good look for BA at all. But, maybe there is something to keeping the attention focused on him. But I do think that, he's in a position now where I think they really do have to negotiate, and they will have to get something done. Yeah.
Ty?
Yeah. They'll get something done. And he's right about, this isn't BA's character. And he's totally, I think, being just emotional about it. But they asked Debo what advice he gave him, and he said, don't get emotional. So it's like, did he really say that, or is just BA just, going there? It's weird. About the other stuff, I agree with Matt that Leonard Floyd, we're going to ask him to do some stuff, and the other guys on the defensive line, like, I don't get this overall sentiment, and it's not just Dieter who said this, where 26 is now old.
I know.
Like, he was talking about Gross Matos, and time was limited. So me, I'm normally the challenger one, but he's been in the league for some time. I'm like, 5 years. He's only 26. Why is that old? Yeah, why is that old all of a sudden?
Coaching staff, our coaching staff seems to work wonders. in those
Yeah,
areas.
with
doing
these
those
guys,
things.
right? We got a track record.
Exactly. So I was like, well, I was going to bring that up, but he was on a roll, so I just let that go too. But that's a great point.
Yeah. So it's
Patriots
weird.
literally made an entire run off of signing guys off of their 4-year contract from other teams that completely like didn't fit their system or whatever they were trying to do. And then they rolled them in and asked them to do whatever it was that they asked to do. And well, it worked about 6 times. So take with that what you will. Right. You know what I mean? Like that. And you're seeing that a lot. The 49ers do a lot of that too, especially on the defensive line. Getting guys, maybe Mooney Ward was a perfect example of that, right? That was a guy that Kansas City wasn't going to be able to sign to premier money to be a premier quarterback, and they were able to get him. He wasn't top flight. People didn't look at Mooney Ward when he hit the ward. They're like, yeah. You know, like they're like, oh, they got a defensive back from the Chiefs. So he's good. You know what I mean? Like they're really good at finding those guys. So that's why I feel like, you know, the guys that they're signing are good and are there. And, you know, I think what Floyd was asked to do in Buffalo last year was completely different as to opposed to what he's going to be asked to do in San Francisco this year. I think he's going to still like do the things that he was asked to do with the Rams. And the other kicker to me is like, we can talk about numbers all day and film and tape and all that, but we don't know anything about the, we don't know anything about what they were asking him to do. Like, were they trying to make him a rush guy? Is that the problem? Do some people really think that, you know, it sounds to me like some people just don't watch West Coast games because they're on the West Coast is really what it sounds like to me sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, this seems like a guy who is probably more of a pass rush specialist, but can be on the field once in a while, a little bit more than that. But the 49ers defensive line isn't like that. Even Nick Bosa comes off the field on regular occasions. You know what I mean? They're constantly rotating people through that line. It's about having upper level depth. So if he had a down year last year and still had just as many sacks as Nick Bosa did, and as many and led the Bills in pressures, like, okay, I'll take that. You know what I mean? Like that's how it goes. And I think this Malik Collins thing too is a great one. He puts out a lot of DJ Jones vibes for me.
Yep.
You know, that kind of vibe. And he was with Houston, so it's not like he doesn't know this defense. So, and he played well last year for D'Amico Ryans. If D'Amico Ryans is able to get stuff out of him, and from what I heard today, Nick Sorensen has the same energy as D'Amico Ryans.
Right.
Then to me, Malik Collins will probably help. Because at the end of the day, we can go back on it. Like they could have, if they kept DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead would have been gone that offseason. And maybe we're not talking about this right now, but we can't go back and fix that, right? They kept Eric Armstead instead, which was odd because this franchise kept a guy from the previous regime as opposed to going with the guy that they picked. But okay, whatever. Do your thing. I think what they did on the line this year and with the defense, I thought there was a lot of reshuffling. I still think there's room to add a free safety, you know, a Justin Simmonsy type, you know what I mean? Those guys are still out there before camp, but I think this Brandon Ayuk stuff has to be done first so that they have the money available to make the best possible offer to someone. And folks, remember, there's so many similarities between this team and the 1994 team that's actually becoming concerning to me. Kyle Shanahan
you
and
see
Steve
it too,
Young,
right?
Yeah, Ty, guys. Steve Young was facing the exact same questions in 1994. For those of you who weren't around for this, right? Everybody in this room was, but 1994, Steve Young can't win the big one. Steve Young can't win the big one. Oh, they've lost to the Cowboys twice. Well, they've lost to the Chiefs twice. You know what I mean? Like this is literally the exact same picture. October 23rd next year is a measuring stick game for this franchise. Period.
That's that Dallas game in 94, regular season, right?
It will be the biggest regular season game since the November 1994 game against Dallas, which was 121-14 tie. The similarities are ridiculous. Like Leonard Floyd reminds me a lot of when they signed Richard Dent, and then Richard Dent got hurt, so they had to go get a Charles Mann. Deion Sanders didn't get signed until after week 3. The first 2 weeks, they played the Raiders and they played the Chiefs. They went 1-1. On Monday Night Football on the opening night, Eddie DeBartolo said, doesn't look like we're, going to get Deion Sanders. And Al Michaels kind of clarified and said, are you sure? And Eddie D said, we are not in it as of right now. right?
Mhm.
And then some things change over the next few weeks, and here comes Deion Sanders.
Then he
So
found
maybe
$1
that
million,
happens.
and there you go.
Yeah, you found a little bit of money. You got some stuff that rolled out. So there's still time for this roster to be sculpted a little bit more into what they want. And I think training camp and OTAs will probably show them exactly what they want to do with that. And I'm guessing that they probably have a plan of guys that they want to get to. So once this BA stuff is done, like, things will probably be sculpted the way it is. And there's a very good possibility they're going to be very active on the trade deadline, because I'm pretty sure the trade deadline is a bye week for them, right? So they don't even have to get it. They could literally just bring somebody in and actually give them a full week of practice this time. So because they'll play Tampa after the bye week this year. So there's a lot of really, really like cool parts for expansion on this team already, where they could get way better than last year. But the similarities between this team and the 94 team, friggin' eerie, man. Like creepy. You know what I mean? There were questions on the defense at that time. They went out, they reloaded, they changed some things up. It's just, the similarities are ridiculous. It's crazy to me.
Hey, Tony G, you mentioned Robert Bill Jr. I don't know. He'll be turning 25 come August.
Yeah.
That's old
Yeah, that's
now.
old.
Well,
He's
and
old.
also
The old
These
man.
old guys,
don't forget, Drake Jackson was playing pretty well last year before he got hurt.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not saying Drake Jackson's going to come on the other side and be like Clyde Simmons to Reggie White. Reggie White in this case being
in
Nick
the
Bosa.
rotation.
But in the rotation, if the
he
depth
can
on
just
that
do
rotation
something.
is up more, to
Exactly.
me, like at the end of the day, like Javon Kinlaw gave it his best shot and did the things he needed to do, but I just don't think his knee was ever where it really needed to be. And I'm sure he's going to be good on, doing things for the Jets, but he wasn't a run stuffer, right? Really, like there wasn't a ton of like, well, I run a Javon Kinlaw. There's definitely not going to be there. I think they upgraded the defensive line. I think it's going to be better, more athletic, and a little bit more flexible. And I think overall scheme wise, I think that will help them too. You know what I mean? So I don't think people are going to be running on us this year. I think they'll be back in the top 5. Maybe they're not maybe number 1.
They drafted too old.
Yeah, in 2 years they'll be aged out. It's terrible.
All right, you
What
guys
is-
have
what is
anything
the
else you
front
want to
office
add before we get to the 2-minute warning?
Is there anything else going on? Is there anything?
I don't think so.
No.
Nah. Everybody's going away for vacation.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yay!
Yeah.
All
All right.
let's go to that hurry up offense in the 2-minute warning. Maddie, you're up.
Niners NE Twitter. Get your tickets. 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 You should get tickets. Get tickets in the player tunnel. Bring a kid. You'll actually have a chance to get something, like thrown at you. Okay. I literally saw Deebo Samuel sign some AirPod Maxes and give them to a kid. This is real things that have happened. Get your tickets for the player tunnel. Dress them up. Make some memories, so that they can continue these podcasts for us, because eventually we're all going to age out of this, because we're all going to be over 25.
Oh man.
Niners NE on Twitter, Niners NE on Instagram. Thank you. Good day.
Yeah, Ty.
If 26 is the age limit, they're going to be putting me out the pasture. Oh my gosh.
I'm going to be doubled up soon.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Hey, we're still in the 40 days of hell. Even though Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers had a meeting, there's still stuff coming out. Like, still people trying to leak stuff and say things. Just ignore it. Go with what you know and let this ride. But everybody should think about what young players should be stepping up for this team and the excitement of seeing them. That's a positive to think about. Take it away.
All right. Christian McCaffrey was nominated for 2 ESPYs. I really hope BA is signed when I get back from vacation. That would be nice. And thanks to Dieter. Great having you on. And as always, go Niners. Go, Becca.
Happy birthday, Malik Mustafa. Titan University wrapped up. That seemed to be a big success this past week. Hopefully we get a BA deal soon. Everyone enjoy all of your vacations, and a couple weeks mine will be up. But yeah, that's it. Go Niners. Oh, and thanks to Dieter for coming on.
Yes, indeed.
See you next week.
Okay. Adios, everybody.
And of course, for the upstart 49ers, they're 6 yards away from Pontiac. 3rd and 3.
We'll see a pickup sometime on the right side, possibly.
Montana looking, throwing in the end zone.